Well, coasters, Bruce here. I'm on the way to Westport and I'm going to see if I can track down Johnny Currie. Johnny Currie's a legend. He's a real pioneer coaster and he lives up Madman's, what I call Madman's, at the Tota River. And this is the entrance here. So the guy's over 80 years old. He's a real gentleman and pretty excited. He's got 1,800 hectares of land in here. Deer everywhere. Time to go and have a look-see. I'm going to find Johnny Currie. This is part of the valley that he owns. It's a huge area. And Johnny's journey has become a major tourism attraction. So at this stage he doesn't know we're on our way. However, what do you reckon, Hayes? We'll keep moving? Folks, just arrived at Johnny's hut and look straight through the bush there. I'll zoom him in if I can. Take a look at that. He's just standing there watching us. And over on the other side there, I'll just zoom him in. There's another decent sized stag. Hang on, get him in. Oh, he's moving. Wow, wow. Oh, goodness me. Did you read books?
Well, there was a good library there. The library at Charlton School was old books from way back. There was an E.H. Ellis that wrote about the early pioneers in America, a couple of young boys, and they travelled out and they met an Indian by the name of Red Feather. So one of the books was about red feathers, and then there was Bear Cavern, Australian the Forest. All those were pretty good reading.
Almost all kind of nature books in their own way, were they?
Pretty much, yeah.
Did you have a favourite teacher?
Tony Medina was the top teacher for me. He was the #1 main teacher through most of my primary school at Charlton.
Why did he stick with you to this day? Because how old are you now? You must
78.
be 78.
Yeah.
And you still run up and down hills. You got me beat. What's in the water up here? It must be pretty good.
Well, it's fresh, clean water. It hasn't been butchered by those townies.
Yeah, that's it.
It could well be.
Johnny, where did you go to high school?
I didn't. I was on correspondence school.
Right.
There was no high school in Charlton, and we couldn't afford boarding. Well, I had two brothers my age, and they did the same. We had correspondence school. Came in a set a fortnight, and my last school report states John's work. That this is the headmaster's thing at the bottom of it. You can see it down in the smoko shed there. There'll be a copy here somewhere. John's work is quite unsatisfactory in every respect, because I was running those 65 possum traps up there and doing it at night time, you see. Yeah.
That's a long way up to the slip too.
Yes, it is. It's a good day's walk to get there and back, and when you're taking the tokens off possums, you can get back fairly late.
Yeah. So, did you have a favourite subject at primary school?
Nature study. Yeah.
Well, that doesn't surprise me.
No, because of where the school was, Charlton. And we had a saltwater aquarium at the school. Saltwater aquariums need fresh salty water every day, so 2 boys were allowed to go down to the beach and get kerosene tins with as much water as they could carry every day.
Yep.
And that was put down to nature study. We were allowed to go down at low tide and check the rock pools and come back with whatever you could find in your tin. And if there was a fish or a particular one not looking too good in the aquarium, you took that back to the sea and let it go. Now, once a week during nature study, the teacher would take us down to the rock pools and we'd catch whatever we could that was different. We even had a tiny octopus in there for a few months. Yeah.
And would there be at Constant Bay?
Constance Bay,
Constance
Dorset
Bay.
Ladies Bay. We
All-
do it around all those.
All three of them.
Yeah.
And so, being at primary school, what were you, 7 or 8 years old?
Well, virtually from 5 through to 12,
And
and I went on to correspondence.
can you imagine them these days allowing the kids to go down to the sea and grab some water?
Well, you couldn't get away with it, not at all. But and we did that all in bare feet. We had to walk to school for the 3 miles from Brown Stairs up to Charleston.
Yeah.
And old Minnie Hampton's cows on the corner in the Manuka there at Ben's Dam. We'd kick them in the guts and make them stand up, and in the frosty morning, so they'd drop a whoopla, and we'd stand in it to warm our feet.
I love it. How would a close friend, when you were growing up, how would they describe your sense of humour?
Well, damn them, I know. Because I was an extremely shy kid. Yeah. I was smaller than most. I had rheumatic fever when I was 11 years old, so I lost that growth period.
Yeah.
I don't know how a friend would describe me. I've never lost any friends.
Did you, when you were growing up, was there anything you wanted to be?
A bushman.
Oh, you got there.
Not for a start. When that last school report come, Mum says, "Oh, John, we can't show this to Dad, can we? Because back in those days, men ruled with an iron fist. You did what you were told, or you got a booted backside."
Yep.
And when it came, she says, "Dad can't see this. We can't show this to Dad." And she says, "You're going to have to tell him you've left school." So I said to him when he come in, and he was eating tea, so I knew I had a chance of escaping. "Dad, I've left school." And he just said, "Well, you're going to town to get an apprenticeship. You'll never be any good as long as the hole in your backside's pointing downwards if you go and work in the bush like your mother's brothers with mud up your back every day." And that was his statement. So I had to go to town and get an apprenticeship. That apprenticeship was with Jack Kilkenny,
Yeah.
and it was spray painting cars. And I was sanding cars and getting wet up to my knees by dinner time every day, and I was right underneath the town clock, and it ding dong, and drove me mad all day. And he had about 500 budgies right there against the Friendlies Hall,
Right.
and they squawked and screeched all day ceaselessly. So by dinner time I would have a headache as well. So then I had to go, and after 3 months, Jack Kilkenny come and said, "Johnny, I'm not going to give you the apprenticeship. You should go and work in the bush with your uncles." Good. And I knew that couldn't be, so I went and joined the railway to become a guard. And of course I had to do shunting up and down the railway yards. Well, I nearly lost my life twice in those wagons. But sweeping platforms was, wasn't every man's cup of tea. But then Mum said, "Johnny, look at this." And here was an ad in the Westport paper wanting junior woodsman at Golden Downs. Well, that was my excuse. She said, "Dad won't mind you being a woodsman because you end up as a forester." And that's a pretty good thing.
Good job.
Yes, so away I went, and that was the escape route. Yeah.
So up to Nelson you went, and
that was like the other side of the world to me. Yeah, and it was a good adventure. But I had the reinforcement of Mum saying, "You're going to have an interesting life." That to take lots of photos, so I was busy clicking photos, and that was a very interesting life out there.
Actually, a lot of the guys that you and I know actually went to Golden Downs, didn't they?
Yeah, and a lot of Westport fellas, Brian Stack, and Joe Currie, Johnny Burt, Arnie Richards. Yeah, there was heaps of Westport boys because they were all country kids, and that has got to come out again too, because all of those Westport boys, and I don't doubt that you did it too, they headed out of Westport on push bikes with a dozen possum tracks over the handlebars.
Yep, we certainly
And
did.
they went in the bush and they hunted possums, and possums were a beautiful, beautiful animal to hunt. And they were a means of making money. They still should be. That's where we're making this big mistake, having people spend millions and millions of dollars on controlling them. There should be a decent bounty on them.
Buller.
Well, when Mum and Dad bought the other farm, while I was at the Downs, I spent a bit of time at Currie, cruising native bush, and then Mum and Dad bought the farm out on the beach. The old farm became available for me to buy for £1,000.
Was
no
that
deposit.
how much was a house then, Johnny? To give me a bit of an idea of
How much would a house cost?
yeah, because how much was £1,000 and sort of that I could understand
it was
it.
an endless amount to me, and the house that was built on the property was only 10 years old, but the opportunity to buy it and no deposit, just pay it off as I could.
Yeah.
Well, as soon as I bought the place, every bushman and deer culler or fisherman that was going up and down the Buller Road knew that there was this 16-and-a-half-year-old boy got a farm in there, and you could go in there and drink booze all weekend, so it became known as the Boar's Nest. And I couldn't make enough money to pay the mortgage and live on with the amount of beer we were drinking. So I had to come over to Madman's Creek and get a job with Hardy and Thompson's, working their way into here. Yeah, that's how I came to be with Hardy and Thompson's when they come over the hill.
So you went from basically Nelson out to the farm, and then into Hardy and Thompson as a bushman.
Yeah, I got a job with them as a bushman. Yeah.
So you'd have worked with a lot of interesting guys.
Oh, too right. Yeah. Jokers like Horse Hendrickson and them fellas that were good bushmen. It was pretty good. And when we got a downtime here with Hardy and Thompson's in Christchurch just after we built the bridge in '61, I went to Taronga Bay, and they were starting to log through to the 4 Mile, which was through the Pancake Rocks.
Yeah.
So I got a job there as a bushman pretty much straight away, and I worked from them back to Hardy and Thompson's and backwards and forwards. I worked for Hardy and Thompson's 4 or 5 times, and Taronga Bay 4 times.
That was the last of the watermills, wasn't it?
That was the last of the watermills. That was built by my uncles, Frank and Phil Mitchell.
Right.
And it was the last of the watermills. It was run from the Cronenville water race. It's a race that I've always been interested in resurrecting and getting working again. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess, did you ever bump into my dad there?
Yeah, quite regularly. Your dad used to drive the log truck there.
Yeah.
Yeah. He'd pull into the mill every day. When I was working in the mill, I was breaking down there. So when he'd come in with a load of logs, I'd go out and help him hook the rope around it to winch them off. Yeah. No, your dad was always a good bloke to work for. Even before I worked for Taronga Bay, I met him the first time I met him was up towards Pigeon Creek in Tailings Creek area. I was working for Taffy James, pulling hop poles with a horse. I was his horseman.
So a hot pole, it's a silver pine pole?
Hop poles were beach.
Beach, okay.
Hard beach, yeah.
Right.
And they used them before they started using tantalise.
Yeah.
But anyway, I worked for old Taffy James. You'd remember Taffy.
I do, indeed I do.
Yeah, he was a Welshman from Currie. Now, he said, we're going up Pigeon Creek to have a look at Eric Smith's new crawler tractor he's using it for pulling out his yellow pine posts. Eric was up there doing yellow pine posts and telegraph poles and all that sort of thing. And then we called up there because he'd bought this old T20 crawler and it was in mint condition. And he built a garage specially to house it up there. I was quite surprised. I come up, we drove up the road, and here's the first thing we run into was a garage. The bulldozer was in it. Yeah. Yeah.
Did you ever have thoughts about retiring?
Not at all. Not at all. No, I don't want to retire. What do you do? Well, I'm already retired.
Yeah, of course.
You could look at it that way. But I pretty much don't knock off till it gets dark. I come in and cook my tea when it gets too dark to do anything. Yeah.
Amazing.
But I do admit that sometimes in the early afternoon I've got to come in and have a wee nanny nap. Yeah. So I light the fire and put the belly on, have a brew, sit down on the chair there and fall asleep for an hour. Yeah. But suddenly something may go through my mind. Hell, I've got to get into that cave. I've got to get down that river and stop the poachers coming up. You know, there's always something that needs doing. Yeah.
Tell me, how old were you when you started dating?
Dating woman.
Yeah.
Um,
Can you remember?
Well, yeah, the thing is that I was reasonably good looking when I was younger, as you can see on that photo.
Yeah,
up
you're
there.
a bit of a handsome critter.
Yeah, and so the Sheilers used to look at me pretty sideways, but I'd then go and spend the next 2 weekends up the mountains chasing deer because I was very shy.
Right.
Yeah, but it wasn't long that I got the hang of it. Yeah.
Do you remember your first date?
Yes, I do. You want me to give you her name?
No.
No.
No, certainly not.
I don't think she'd be too embarrassed if I did, but yeah. No, I do remember my very first date quite well.
And you've been married a couple of times?
I've been married twice.
You're old enough to be married 5 times, but anyway.
Yes, but I'm a bit sceptical about doing it again. I'm actually in the process of looking for a lady now. I'm on phone conversations with several of them.
Oh, I love it.
And both of them have been on tours with Mickey. Yeah, there was just a bit of a clicky thing there, but one of them is possibly interested in coming and living in the bush, but yeah, I'd have to build a new hut.
Yes. Yes. But look, if she can cook and she's happy to feed the deer and all the rest of it.
Well, yeah, I can cook too. We can do it's all mutual stuff, yeah. But yeah, that's all good.
So how many kids did you have?
I had 5 kids.
5.
2 of them were adopted. Yeah.
Right.
One of them's gone now. Travis has been gone for it's going on 5 years. He died 5 years ago in an accidental death. But we adopted a little Ngāpuhi girl, Melanie. She came from Wellington.
Yeah.
And yeah, she fitted in with the family. And the oldest son, Shane, was 2 with my first wife when I married her, and I adopted him too. And they had pretty good growing up. I always believed with kids was to go and play with them. And of course at Charleston, I already knew where all the swimming holes were and everything. So we were always out there doing it.
So they're learning from the big dog.
Yeah, I remember one Christmas we took them on a trip. We managed to have enough money to go on the Earnslaw, and then we got down to Lumsden and there was the Kingston Flyer, but we couldn't afford to go on it. So I said to the boys, we'll race it back up to Kingston, and every time we get ahead of it, if I see a good place for a photo, we'll jump out of the car and run across into the paddock. So I said, you boys go pull the whistle like that, and when you get out there, I'll take the picture. So we'd race across the paddock and stand in position, and when he got exactly to the right spot, the boys would go like that. So he'd blow the whistle, and I'd take the picture. We got up to Kingston, and he unhooked the train, and he went chuffing down the line. I said, he's going to turn the thing round. So come on, we jumped in the car and chased him down to the turntable.
Right.
So I got the 2 older boys, who's come with me. I ran over and grabbed him. He was just starting to push the train engine round. He getting it on the balance, you know, and he was just going to start pushing it around. And I ran over and I said, can my boys help you push just for the photo? Oh, no, you're not allowed to. I don't think it's very good. I said, hey, they got the same path to walk as you. They're country kids, they know. And so the 2 boys pushed, and I took the photo of them helping turn the engine.
Oh, what a ripper.
Yeah.
Oh.
Evening, I'd just say to them, come, we're going camping. We jump in the car and go somewhere and pull up to a little toker or somewhere like that.
Yeah.
And set up a tent and sleep the night. Right, we've got to get up for school in the morning. We've got to go home and get ready for school. And we do it like that.
Johnny, did you ever meet your grandparents?
Yes, I knew me dad's mum and dad. I boarded with Nan and Granddad Currie. He was the head slaughterman at the Westport abattoirs for donkeys years, old Ted Currie.
Right.
And Granddad Mitchell and Grandma Mitchell, they were on the farm at Charlton, the one that I bought first.
Yeah.
Brown Terrace one. Yeah, I knew them fairly well, but they died while I was very young.
It's very, in all the interviews I've done, it's very rare to find someone who's actually can even remember their grandparents.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's quite amazing.
I'm very lucky in that respect. Yeah.
What do you reckon would be the most important or the worst inventions that you've seen in your lifetime?
Well, I always reckon that our generation from the 40s, we had the best of everything because we went through from virtually from, well, one of my first jobs was driving a horse, and my uncles used a horse to pull the main rope into the bush instead of a tail rope. And, you know, you can look at the inventions. How many inventions can you say which one was the worst one? I wouldn't have a clue. I haven't given it a thought. I can't think of any that haven't been beneficial. Yeah.
When you were at home, did you have a fridge?
We never got power on at home at Charleston until 1964.
Oh, wow.
I bought that farm at the end of 1958. And I remember when they bought electricity to Charleston, we had to sign up an agreement that we would buy the electricity of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the power lines come along the beach. Yeah.
It'd be a big step forward, though, wouldn't it?
It was a pretty big thing for Charleston in 1964. I was living at the home there. My brother Val was boarding with me. We were both working up here in Madman's Creek in the bush. And the first thing we bought was a freezer. So the first thing I did after that was kill one of my cattle beasts, the fattest one, and cut it all up and put it in the freezer. But because we didn't realise we should have left it hang for a few days, it was a bit tough. So yeah, we soon learned to hang them for a few days.
We learn things over life, don't we?
Yeah, too right. You never stop learning.
Now, how did you end up buying this place? This is just stunning.
Well, I'd worked through here and I knew the bosses pretty good, Raymond Thompson and Kelvin Thompson. And they'd stopped logging up here. But I'd remember that from the caves here, we found these caves on over in the Ananui, which were actually on the property. That's a photo of me in the dragon's teeth, taken in 1960.
Yeah.
A very young, clean-shaven man there. And from then on, when we discovered them, I'd taken tourists in there. And then we built the Mitchell's Gully Gold Mine in 76, 77. We got a design award for that. It was producing an ounce of gold a week, and the tourists were coming through pretty thick for a start. But after a while, they eased off because the price of petrol went up. Remember, towards 79, 80, the price of petrol.
Careless days and all sorts of
rubbish. So I thought I'd try and get a tourist attraction going in these caves. So I applied, I think, 3 or 4 times and tried to take tourists in there. And I went to Thompson about crossing this land because I was going to take him in the main entrance down this way.
Yeah.
And he said, we're finished logging it. You might as well buy it. And I knew that there were 2 valleys that hadn't been logged. So I went to my banker and says, hey, come and have a look at this. And he came and had a look and he saw these 2 valleys full of timber still. And he said, oh, yeah, that'll easy pay for the property. The price was, what he wanted for it was 1,800 acres of Crown lease, and he wanted $25,000. There was a bloke grazing it with a sublease, and I said, well, there's a sublease on it. And he says, oh, well, I'll knock $5,000 off to put wind in your sails to get rid of him. So I then looked at the lease, and the lease said that any costs accrued would be paid by the sublessee, and I thought, well, it's not going to cost me anything to get him off, and he's already dropped $5,000 off the price. So I looked at it and I wrote a few letters from my lawyer to his lawyer to clear the noxious weeds and open the drains and keep the bridges and watercourses and culverts open and all that. And of course he didn't do anything, he didn't have the money to do it. So I then wrote a letter after about 4 that if he withdrew and pulled his cattle out, immediately I wouldn't push any of the issues.
Oh, you're a good man.
And he immediately did that. Yeah.
So it's 1,800 acres, and we're on the boundary of the Paparoa National Park, aren't we?
Well,
are we sort of there?
That Paparoa National Park that's right on the side here, right against this property.
Yeah.
That 700 acres was part of the 1,800 that was this property. So then when I freeholded, I said to them, you take that 700 acres in the Ananui and preserve the caves, and they accepted that. Yeah, so I virtually gave them 700 acres, which is now the outlier to the Paparoa National Park.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so do you retain access for your grazing and all that sort of thing?
In that land?
Yeah.
Well, it's all bush and there's no reason to graze it.
Okay.
Yeah. It's well preserved now, and that's the way I felt it should be.
For the people of New Zealand.
Yeah.
Very, very generous, I reckon. And so the area that you've got left here, you've basically just lived on it and grazed a few deer.
Well, I've pruned the white pine trees. I've opened up the bush, and I built those ponds there to save the cockatoos.
Yeah, I see that. What's your plan there?
That's just so that the fishes can breed better.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a very good reflection on them when the deer are feeding at the back end of them. And I carried the soil from the pancake rocks and spread it round the back of them.
So is that how you built your dams?
No, I got an excavator in to build the dam.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that from a preservation point of view, that'll be interesting to see how that goes.
Yeah, well, there's fish in them now. I went up there the other day and I saw half a dozen cockapoo. Yeah. They naturally occur in those, and I need to put more logs, pancake rocks, build hideouts for them. The cockapoo like to have places to hide in.
Yeah.
Yeah. All their habitat has been destroyed by farming. Yeah.
And it is a problem. It's actually a habitat issue that we have at the present time,
That's
isn't
what
it?
I'm doing, is creating habitat.
Yeah.
I've tried to swap the lower Madman's Creek with Doc for they've got a significant wetland on 200 acres in the parkee up atop here.
Yeah.
So I tried to say to them, well, you have this 200 acres of significant wetland. Give me the Madman's Creek block, which my granddad had a lease on, and he logged it back in the 30s and 40s. You give me that block, it's a surveyed block, and I can create cockapoo ponds down there. That's just a natural swamp. And when they built the tram line up where the road is now, because they built the road over Mitchell's old tram line, it's created a swamp in the back of there, and it's all kahikatea, but it's full of gorse and scrub and shit. It needs cleaning out and a decent deep creek built, and that would become probably one of the best cockapoo places for cockapoo to dwell anywhere in the Buller.
So how are you going with
They don't want to swap. They think they come up with all sorts of reasons. The block, the north side of the block, when I first applied, they said a small bluff on the north side of Madman's Creek. The last time I applied, because Mickey come up here and we opened up Cowpiddle Bluff. I named it Cowpiddle Bluff when Denny Broad and I were taking lime from up there.
Yeah.
When you go across and have a look, there's a half a 44-gallon drum that we hung off a wire and I'd shovel it full of lime dust, and let it run down onto the back of the truck. We loaded on the truck in Madman's Creek, and I'd wind it back up, fill it up again. That drum was made by Steamboat Bob Matthews. You remember Bobby Matthews, was a smithy at the Marine Department?
Certainly do.
Yeah.
So he made
it. He built that for us. And we used to run it up and down there when Denny Broad had a little toter block there.
Yeah.
And I'd take me Model A truckload home. I'd get 2 or 3 drums full on that, take it home and spread it on my paddocks. Now, when Mickey came up here, I said, go across there and have a look under that Cowpiddle Bluff. And he went and had a look. So then Doc got involved and had to make signs here and there and put their little green signs on it so that they had proof that they owned it. The next time I tried to swap the land, that came back the well-known Cowpiddle Bluff. They didn't even know there was a bluff there, let alone a cowpiddle one. So it just shows you how they stymie me every time. Because I'm a bushman and I'm a conservationist, you see, I'm an anomaly.
Yeah.
And they just wish I'd disappear into the bush and stay there.
And it's not like you've been here for 5 minutes.
That's right, yeah.
So, listening to you before, it sounds like you're getting to the stage where you're just about ready to sell up.
Well, I've been considering selling up, yeah. I want to go to Scotland and watch the roaring season over there, but it'll be a couple of years before I actually let the place go.
Well, I would imagine the interest would be huge, both from Doc and from private people.
Well, if I do put it on the market, everybody says that Martin Jack is the best man to do this sort of a thing.
All right.
And I would ask him to go and see Eugenie Sage before anybody else.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, that's a reasonable first step, isn't
it? Because of the all the pain that I went through from the stopping and the logging, with all the trespass from all the greenies and all the helicopter noise and the dust in the hut and the truck drivers scrapping on the side of the road all through. It was 5 years of pretty near pure hell. So some form of compensation that way would be better than selling up. But, those people, when they see the documentary that my lady friend from Wellington and the interview with the bloke that wrote the book, maybe they'll see the way to let me stay here, and maybe Doc will buy it and put it onto the national park. That would be my preference. Yeah.
Be wonderful for New Zealand.
Oh, for sure.
Oh, that'll be interesting to watch.
Yeah.
So, Johnny,
watch this space.
That's it. I'm sure that if anyone can do it, you and Minister Sage will be able to put something together for the people of New Zealand.
I'd like to get Maureen Pugh, the national lady for the Buller West Coast region, to have a bit of an input as well.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that she'd be right into it.
Mm.
Johnny, how's the world different today than from when you were a kid in Charleston?
Well, it's the technological thing, the little telephones, all that sort of thing, the computer age, which I pretty much avoid.
Yeah.
Even though I've got to go there with my cameras and that, because your camera comes on a little card now. You've got a little card there.
Yeah. And
you've got that forever. Well, I've got, I think, 30 or 40 cards there that I've got stuff on that the world needs to see. And this Raylene Beals from Wellington, she's doing this documentary on me. She's had quite a lot of the early Super 8 videos on the DVDs,
And she's transferred them over?
She's working on a lot of it. Yeah, there's a hell of a lot of footage out there. Most of it's grandchildren enjoying themselves here, and logging. There's a bit of logging, all that sort of thing. But most of it's deer. Photos of videos of deer and deer fights, all that sort of thing. If you talk to experienced hunters that have been in the bush all their life, and you say, have you ever watched a couple of stags walk the line? What the hell's that? Well, it is a fact that if there's a stag holding hinds and another stag comes new out of the bush, they'll work together until they're 10 feet apart, and they'll walk a dead straight line, get to the end of it and roar again, turn around and walk that same straight line back the other way, cross creeks and still roar, and then they'll walk the line again. And if one of those stags, usually the incoming one, steps 2 feet inside the line, then the fight's on and they're hard out.
Oh, and that's what happens.
You haven't seen it?
No, I haven't.
Well, there you go, you see. Now, I've got to get that footage out, don't I?
Oh, look.
I think I've got 3 or 4 good footages of stags walking the line.
I think driving down into the valley here, realising that there's no fences, first thing we saw was a hind and a fawn.
Yeah.
Then I've seen half a dozen stags already, and it's just the most amazing feeling.
Magic. They're an extremely magic animal. They were brought here for sport and food, and we've had many years of them. And it's unfortunate in some places they got in too high a numbers to be supported for the way the bush was.
Yeah.
But that's no different to what the moa did, because the moa, which was a Strutheus, was a very large bird, and it had no natural prey animals. They come out and say that the Hapagornis was naturally preyed on the moa, but he didn't naturally prey on the moa at all. He preyed mainly on shags, hanging out drying their wings on logs in the river.
Right.
because he was only weighed up to 20 pound, 25 pound. Now you can't tell me that a Hapagornis is going to dive at 100 miles an hour on a 300 pound mower with legs on it like a racehorse.
Yeah.
Not a hope in hell. Well, see, there was a Dr. Brian Holdaway. They found a hip bone of a mower with a claw through it. Now that hip bone is preserved in Te Papa Museum. Now, he deduced that the eagle must have hit it at 100 miles an hour. Now, the claw of a half seagull is as big as your finger.
Right.
Now, you dig your finger imagine digging your finger into the rump of a racehorse. There's no way in hell you're going to get through to the hip, let alone because your claw turns.
You need another 6 inches at least.
Yes. Well, what happened with that mower, of course, was that it had got bogged, which mower did quite regularly because there was that many in the swamps in Canterbury. They dug the bones out and crushed them for fertiliser. There was thousands and thousands of them bogged. Why would they bog? Why would they fall down tomos in the bush? It's because they're starving. Chooks, birds have got good balance. They don't fall off things. Why would a mower jump down a tomo and get lost and get his bones in there?
Yeah.
Why would they walk out into a swamp? Because that's the only place there's something green to eat.
There's no tucker left.
Landed on it, and when it struggled, it sunk its claws in and the bone had rotted away.
Yuck.
And it just did it that way. Yeah.
Now, Johnny, you've discovered mower bones.
Many mower bones in many caves. I can take you and show you a few now.
Wow.
Yeah, I know where there's mower bones in caves. Yeah.
And when was the first time you realised how significant that was?
Well, when we discovered the caves over here, we, as kids, had walked up the river a few times and gone into caves like what they now call Waireka and explored them all. That's funny because the Buller Caving Club used to call into the Charleston pub after their day's work, their weekend's work on a Sunday afternoon, bring me a jug of beer and plonk it in front of me and say, where should we go next weekend? And so I'd give them another cave.
Yeah.
And I did that many, many, many times. Yeah. So, yeah, we knew where the mower bones were. And in 1963, after the caves had been surveyed by Malcolm Laird, I was with the Deerstalkers Association. We were taking the National Film Unit up the Mokanui they were going to do a publicity film for hunting in the Mokanui. This was Jim Mulholland and Johnny Kilcolly, the top Buller Deerstalkers guys.
Yeah, they were.
And we had the National Film Unit, and there were two cameramen there and his assistant, Grant Foster and Hugh MacDonald. Well, when we come out of the Mokanui, of course, the first thing the Deerstalkers Association, like most bushmen in those days, we were into the Sedenville pub. So a couple there and a couple at Mokanui, a couple at Knockawar, a couple at the Granity pubs, and then Waimang and the Pig and Whistle and Pines, and then the Black and White. Well, see, they were pretty drunk, and they were quite excited about their weekend's jaunt into the bush, and they said, is there anything else we could come back here to make a movie of? And I says, yeah, I've got this cave full of mower bones. Would you like to look at them? And they go, what? So they arranged with Ron Scarlett from the Canterbury Museum, who was the ornithologist there. And they came and we walked them in from here, across the river here and over into the cave. And we carried out, I think, 10 boxes of bones. And they went to the Canterbury Museum, and the film went around New Zealand in the movies. It was before TV, you see, and this film come around. And I'll never forget because they wrote me a letter and told me when it was going to be on, and I said, well, yeah, I'll go and have a look at it. And of course it came on that Movie Tone News before first half.
Right.
Yeah, so when we come out, half the movie theatre give me the heebie-jeebies thinking one of these days you'll see me in the movie.
You'll be in.
So I spent the rest of the half time round the men's toilet.
You'll be in Hollywood. Now, the caves across the river, they've got stalagmites and stalactites in them.
Which ones?
The ones
just across the river from here.
Yeah, the ones with your photo.
These ones.
Yeah,
that's just endless. And now these I I pretty much explored the 6 or 8 kilometres with Malcolm Laird when they surveyed them, except for the second half of it, because I had a hunting trip on up the Marrawea, and I didn't want. I'd rather be up the Marrawea than in the cave holding tapes different ways. So I went to Phil Woods and I said, Phil, would you like to do some caving and finish surveying the caves? He goes right on top of it. That's how the Buller Caving group got started.
So are they 6 or 7 kilometres long?
In there, they weigh more than that now because they've got cave divers and they're diving in underwater and they're extending it almost double. So they're looking at getting up around 20 k's.
Oh,
probably.
goodness me.
And possibly come through to here.
What an attraction.
Over in the Ananui Valley, there's several caves that we explored a little way, coming this way. And when I get inside there, where I showed you that hole down there,
yeah,
we get inside there, we could get quite down past the Maori Cave. Me and Swanee explored 1.5 kilometres of a cave just below there.
And you walked in it, or you crawled through it?
Walked and crawled and wriggled and carried on. Yeah, exploring caves is a pretty adventurous sort of thing, because just like when you dig the mud off the Pancake Rocks, you're not going to know what's under the next shovelful. It changes and turns and that, and caves do the same thing. And when we first walked in here, you sank 2.5 to 3 inches in the soft, puffy mud that had fallen from the roof. Just soft, silky stuff. Matter of fact, when tourists go in these caves now, they get told that's Johnny Currie's dog Chum, because there's these dog marks walking around in the soft stuff under where you can't walk.
Yeah.
Because he explored it, you see.
And he went and had a look everywhere?
Yeah. Chummy was the dog that got lost to 1080 in 75. Yeah.
Do you have any views on 1080?
I think that there's some places that appears to be doing a good job, but it annihilates such a large amount of birds, and it nails the rats and stoats a bit, but they come back. They seem that we've got a bigger plague now than we've ever had of rats and mice, and we've had 1080 for 60 years. Now what's happening is the rats and mice breed back so quickly that are we ever going to get ahead of them? Yeah, it could be that because the fishes in the creeks up here are nothing like they used to be. About 5 years ago, we came across a dead giant cockapoo in the Ananui. And around here, there were dead eels and trout in the creeks. And it wasn't while they were dropping 1080, but is it a residual thing? When they're due to come back and drop 1080 in the headwaters of here, they stay off my land, but they drop it up in the headwaters here, and there's thousands of hectares up there, and every dead animal comes down. Now, we saw 800 rats come down the Buller after a 1080 drop in the Marrawea. Of course, it wasn't the 1080 that killed them. They just jumped in the river and drowned, didn't they? Now, if Doc had done their thing properly, they'd have said, yeah, well, if we've killed that many rats in one hit, isn't it a good thing? But they tried to hide from it. So there's a lot of underhanded skullduggery goes on with it. And anybody that objects to 1080 now becomes a environmental
terrorist.
Yeah. I can't object to 1080 because I'm completely surrounded by dock land and a national park, even though it was my land. I don't want to become known as a terrorist, so I'm scared to write letters to the paper about 1080 anymore. My reputation is what it is. To object to 1080. I wrote a letter to the Westport paper when they first started using it here, and pardon me, what I did was say, does the 1080 kill the earthworm, and starve the kiwi, or does the kiwi eat the earthworm that's ingested 1080 and die of secondary poisoning? Because it is a carnivore. That was my very first letter to the Westport paper.
It's a real challenge, isn't it? And look,
it's a very hard thing. We want to save our wildlife, but to what extent are we in destroying the environment? I mean, it was developed as an insecticide. So does it kill insects still?
Don't know, yeah.
Don't know. Is the toxicology strong enough to kill insects still? Does it have a secondary effect that it kills the fishes? I look at my bush and I look at my river that is my lifeblood, and I can't touch that river. It takes 2 years before I feel safe to go and drink that water and wash in it again. Yeah, 2 years it takes, and I've had it a number of times there, and it's a horrible sick feeling when you go near the river and you can think of those thousands of rats, stoats, possums, deer, whatever animals, birds, insects that are dead. Every one of them's got to exude it from the river. You see?
Yep.
So what sort of a poison does it create in the river?
I come through Arthur's Pass the other night, and I can tell you, every 10 metres there were rats or mice running across the road. I've never seen in my life. I've never seen anything like it.
Have you ever seen? I've got plagues of rats and mice. If the dogs are in here, they're usually looking up the roof. There's rats and mice. If you look over there on the bench, there's 2 rat traps.
Yeah.
You know, it's. I've never been plagued this bad before. And of course, we did have a big masting. The beach, the kahikatea here was just bright red with berries. And you go and dig around the base of them, and the seeds there by miles. But of course, the ones that are sprouted have gone too far for the rats and mice, and the rats and mice have got to go somewhere else. So native birds cop the flap.
Johnny, do you think we're getting an early flowering of rata? I've just been looking at it.
Well, it's Christmas. The flower, they should be in full flower
at Christmas time.
They should be out in full flower now.
Oh, they're not, are they?
Well, I haven't seen it. I haven't been anywhere.
No, they're not.
Not many big rata trees up here. When we logged it, we took most of them for firewood.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which was the done thing in those days. But I can show you rata trees up to this big going up the hill. And, the big, huge rata trees in the Buller Gorge, they should be out in bright flower before Christmas. Yeah. The seasons are changing.
What do you think about climate change?
About it?
Yeah, well, is it real? Is it changing?
Well, definitely.
Definitely changing, isn't it?
Westport's never had a sea halfway across it before, and the next one's going to come 3/4 of the way across. The Buller River Bridge is built 1 metre lower than it should have been, and it doesn't have that outlet on the south side through McIntyre's old cowshed where it used to go through. There was 3-4 foot of water used to go that way. The only way for it now is down through the main street of Westport. I tell people in Westport, if they don't ship now, they're going to have to ship soon or they'll be floating out at sea.
It's happened before.
Well, what'll happen this time, because the river's contained, that it'll go down the main street, round the floating basin and out to sea at Derby Street. If it sluices long enough, then it's undercutting the tar seal and it'll work its way back through the town. We'll have 100 foot wide, 20 foot, 30 foot deep chasm right up the main street. So it's pretty frightening. That, of course, when I get asked things, I'll come up first with the worst case scenario.
Yep.
And from the domain to the bridge, that's the only flow for the water. And round through there, it takes it straight down the main street.
Can't go anywhere else.
That's right. Now, I tried to say to them in a letter some 10 years ago, if you had a big remu tree coming down in a big flood with the roots dragging on the bottom, the head would be up above the water level and it'd get on to the end of the bridge and it'd skid to about 45 degrees and it'd stop there.
Yep.
The next one coming sideways would land on a pier and you start building a dam. And that's how dams form against bridges, because things can't get through under them. And that gravel, every time there's a flood now, you'll see a new layer of gravel over the top and it's building up and building up. And it stands to reason that if you put a rock wall that far out into a level sea, then the flood waters have got to stop somewhere, don't they? And if you've got a full tide, down the main street's the only way for it to go.
And is that caused principally by the hills aggregating and the gravel building up in the river?
That was from the 68 earthquake. It's coming out the lower Buller Gorge now. The problem with the coastline is that we have an onshore drift that the sea chews at the coastline and it drifts to the north at 2 knots. Now, all of the detritus from the big rivers further south has gone north and is Farewell Spit.
Yep.
Now you look at Farewell Spit, it goes out for a long, long way. There's 100-foot high sandhills. When you fly over, you can see the shallow water for 20k in there. That's millions and millions of tons of sand that come out the rivers further south. Now, all of those rivers, if the sea on this side was the same as Canterbury, which is an offshore drift and it leaves the sand behind, we'd have a wider plain than Canterbury. But because of our heavy rainfall and the onshore drift, which takes the sand away, then the coastline is eroding continuously. Now, we haven't had a major earthquake in the Southern Alps for so long that the beaches along are depleted. And that's why it's washing in. More than anything else is the fact that all the sand has gone north and the beach keeps chewing away. If we've got sea level rise, which we definitely have, whatever cause, then the sea's getting higher. And when you look at the level of rise, if you say 2 inches, because the beach washes in like that, it's going to chew more than 2 inches in. It's going to keep chewing in.
We're seeing that at Carter's Beach and all
everywhere.
Yeah,
everywhere.
All the way down to Harstad.
Granity, and it don't matter where you go.
Yeah.
They're chewing away. Mainly because the beaches are depleted because there's been no major earthquakes to bring more gravel down there. But I rue that happening, and even though we've got to admit it, I see 20 feet of gravel over every farm south of Hokitika. That from there south is going to be finished.
Yeah.
All those river valleys naturally get the gravel and everything coming down them.
She just builds up, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, well of course that's pretty natural. Yeah.
So Johnny, you're at 78.
Yep.
Any other adventures that you desperately need to hook into?
Well, like I said before, I'd really like to see the roaring season in Scotland. If I was to get all my hunting and stag videos, my stag fights, and all those things together and condense them down to half an hour of really exciting stuff, and I see myself in a pub in rural Scotland where there's all these fellas, these wealthy big landowners that have all these wealthy people from all over the world going there and paying big money to shoot stags and show them my footage and get in some fights with the gillies in the pub. That'd be pretty good stuff.
That'd be like the early days at Charleston.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
And so are you think you'll do it?
I honestly do, yeah. I'd really like to go and have a look at Scotland in the roaring season. And I'd also like to go back up the west coast of Canada and have a better look at that.
Oh, so you've been there before?
Oh, yes. My last wife was a Canadian-American skier, and she had travelled the world pretty much, and she knew where she was going. And we had to go first to Colorado to sell up all the gear there. And I went and I climbed 13,000 feet in the Rockies, in the southern Rockies in Colorado. And I climbed 12,000 feet in the northern Rockies above Golden in British Columbia. Yeah.
See any bears? Did you see any bears?
We saw a bear up further. We went up on the Queen of the North and up on the Haida Gwaii Island, the Queen Charlotte Islands. We saw a black bear there. But while we were in Colorado, we visited some people that had built a house way up in the bush. They built these roads in and built these big fancy houses on the old ranches, you know, and they got this 100-acre clearing with houses right around it. And at the back door, they got this thing hanging down, and they feed the hummingbirds.
Right.
And of course, the black bear thought that the honey, he could smell the honey when they freshly put it in, and he come out to have a look at the honey, but I spotted him and I out with my camera, so he wandered off into the bush. So I chased him for about half a mile trying to get a photo, but I couldn't catch up to him. Yeah.
So, Johnny, as we wrap this up, we have a lot. We have about 25,000 members in the Coasters Club, and these
A
videos,
few of them would be Bullerites too.
a lot of them are Bullerites,
Yeah,
and
as you are yourself.
of course, and so if there was, a lot of them are young people. Have you got any advice that you can give at 78? You'd know things now that you didn't know at 20.
Yeah.
You got any advice you could give to the young ones out there today?
Spend more time in the bush. That would be my one. Yeah. Get off your computers and your thumb twiddling devices and get back in the bush. Not where there's a track, where there's no track. Go and explore your bush. Doc doesn't own it. We put him there to manage it for us. Go and explore it yourself and trap some stoats and rats and possums. Kill some wasp nests. That's my advice. Yeah.
Well, there we go, Coasters. I've had the pleasure of spending now a couple of hours with Johnny Currie. We're up Madman's Creek, and there's a thing called Johnny's Journey. You can Google it. Go and have a look. It is absolutely stunning. It's a must do. The fella called Mickey Ryan, who runs Out West Tours, give Mickey a ring, and he'll arrange for you to come and have a talk to Johnny and have a look at what is the most beautiful, stunning place. And to those of you that have an eye for the future, there's a real possibility that this entire block is going to come on the market. Look, Johnny, thank you so much for talking to Hayden and I. We really appreciate it.
Most welcome.
And we'll catch you later.
Yeah. Yes. Have